extremely interesting. Now, I just want to jump through here a little bit and come back to Vanessa and get an update from you, Vanessa, please, on the situation with the observers that went to visit the Donbas last week for the referenda.
Yeah, so the discrimination against the the international independent observers who went, many of them independently with their own resources because they were interested to find out more, like this German energy giant boss who was sacked, as the headline says, for being honest. Managing director of the German energy company EWF, Stefan Schaller, decided to personally get acquainted with the situation in the Donbass and attend the referendum taking place. Subsequently, he praised the local authorities in Donbass for the good organization of the voting and for his honesty in exposing the EU claims that the referendum is a sham. It looks like he will lose his position. He now has lost his position as chief executive officer of the energy giant. And he stated publicly that this was purely a personal initiative. He took a vacation for this, so it wasn't on work time. Schaller explained. Later, having seen everything personally, he praised the organization of the voting on Russian television, a mortal sin as it appears. So, as I said, the persecution of the international observers continues. What I wanted to show, Mike, we may not have time to see all of it, but just also to demonstrate to people, there was another German politician who actually accompanied me to Donetsk, Christoph Korstel, who has his own political party in Germany, who is totally on board with the COVID hoax and all of the applied measures being brought in by the WEF and the Great Reset. He published this video on his various channels, and what he's basically doing is he's paying for a plane to fly various banners over the skies of Berlin at various times. I think, actually, no, I'm not supposed to say that because that's a secret. The next one he's doing, you'll know about it when it happens. This one is basically calling for Nord Stream to be opened, not by Russia, of course, but by the NATO member states. So I don't know if we can see just a few minutes of this, because I think why it's important is to show that there are movements in Germany and across Europe that are now starting to really push back against the NATO war in Ukraine and also against the Great Reset, etc.
Germany's economy is collapsing because our historically highly corrupt government policy is more afraid of Washington's deep state than of its own people. We are so undecided, so limp, so powerless that we let ourselves be ruined after the murderous corona circus. The world looks on in horror. But that's unfortunately not all. In truth, the aggressive West has long since been preparing for World War III. The crash is only preparation for the great showdown and multi-million deaths. And Putin in Moscow, the Russian people, are facing the next great patriotic war. Do we really want to do this to ourselves for the third time against Russia in over 100 years, and this time guaranteed to lose? And this is the last choice we get. Either we get rid of the government or the government gets rid of us. Let's go. We still have something to lose, and spring will be broke. How long do we want to wait until we die en masse in the hail of bombs in the end, under nuclear bombs? We have to stick together, all of us. It's about bare survival. We are the new center. We go all the way back to reason.
You go ahead.
And I think the only other point that I wanted to make, obviously, the MEP Natalie Loiseau is still pursuing me individually, which is an abuse of her power to wage a vendetta against me because of my previous work exposing her role in the chemical weapon sham in Syria. But also, what has come to light, not recently, but it's sort of been joined into my case, was her role effectively in covering up not only embezzlement within the Foreign Office corps in Benin in Africa, but also the attempted murder of a whistleblower who was exposing the corruption and embezzlement in the Foreign Office there. And Francoise and Nicolas has been waging this battle against Natalie Loiseau, who effectively was in charge of human resources at the time that her case came to light. So Natalie Loiseau's, let's say, roots in corruption and protection of the neo-colonialist agenda of her own government go back a long way. I would really like to say thank you to everyone that reached out to ask what it is they can do to help. There is an email address for Joseph Borrell, who Natalie Loiseau addressed with her letter calling for sanctions, personal sanctions against me, and sanctions against all the international observers. I would urge people to write and express your dismay at this clear abuse of power and attempt to effectively lead a fascist censorship campaign against diverging views and dissenting voices. The more letters that he receives, we may actually be able to do something to prevent this sanctioning going ahead. So, you know, when you think you can't do anything, you can. If Joseph Borrell receives 1,000 letters, 2,000 letters, doesn't have to be long, but just expressing your disgust at the potential persecution of people who went with best intentions to observe a referendum that the UN and the OCSE refused to do. So they reneged, they derelicted on their duty. We filled their roles, and now we're being punished for it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
thank you to everyone who sent messages of support, but please don't stop there. Please actually take some action to prevent this happening, not only for myself, but for everyone who is being basically punished for doing what they think is right.
Yes.